Hi there, Sid here from Border Archery. I want to try and cover grip height, angle of your grip. Yeah. But it's not that easy. You didn't come to Border's page to get a simple answer, did you? Okay, so back to my favourite fun book. Okay, predominantly for one specific chapter, right? Bent bottom limb, not so bent top limb, because he's got a lot of grip pressure on the bottom end of the grip. Okay, better, right? Here you can see still got a low pressure on the grip, even though he's holding his knuckles at 45 degrees. He's still got a lot of pressure on the heel, and I believe it says, you guys can see that better than I can. But anyway, back to front, isn't it? Anyway, you get the gist, right? So the pressure you put on there versus the pressure that you put on there changes the timing of the bow. With ILF, you change the tiller bolts and you can mangle the system to come to some sort of agreement. Before ILF, the archer had to learn the bow, and that's the crucial key trick. The screen's going a bit funny. Wonder if it's in the recording. We'll find out. Anyway, the idea is that some people like a low grip, some people like a high grip, and it changes your shoulder position and yada yada yada. But what does it do to the bow? There seems to be very little information about what it does to the bow. So we've established that it changes your limb timing, right? But people just change grips. I like a high grip. Good for you. I'm glad you do. I like a low grip. Well, bully for you too. Congratulations. And I'm going to buy a new riser. What the heck has that just done? You haven't got a clue, have you? But you'll just change the limb bolts. I don't think that it's all compatible, because there comes a point where you've knocked the bow so badly out of sync that you can't do much with it. Let me try and show you why. This riser is 420 millimeters in length, okay? Right? From the end of the plate to the end of the plate is 420 millimeters. Okay? Now I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but if I show you, the throat of the grip is running at about, the throat of the grip is running about 220 millimeters. The middle of the deepest part of the throat seems to be around about 220 millimeters. Which means that there's 220 millimeters to the top and only 200 millimeters to the bottom half. That means this bow has the grip quite low on the riser. Let me try and get this one set up. This riser is 470 millimeters. Okay, I had it out this morning. Hold on, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this with one hand. Right, you might just have to take my word for it. 470 millimeters long. Okay, so at 470 millimeters, the riser has the throat of the grip. The middle of the throat, it appears to be at about 240 millimeters. So there's 240 millimeters to the upper end, sorry, to the for the upper half, which means that there's not quite as much on the bottom. That's a rough measurement looking through with the Deflex. Okay, so then I'm going to give you another conundrum. Okay, what we've done with our Tempest is we've rounded the throat off. Okay, so when you measure the end to the end of a 25-inch Tempest, it's 635 millimeters end to end, of which without the grip the throat appears to be 310 millimeters to the center line. Okay, to the deepest part of the throat. All right. So what that means is that not all grips are in the middle of the bow. Some are high, some are low. So if you've got a riser that's low pressured, low gripped, right, as in the grip sits low within the riser, right, what do you think heeling the grip does? Right? Makes it even worse. So pushing through the center would be better, wouldn't it? Yeah? How do grips help with this? Yeah? So, if you take 3 grips, right, from the same manufacturer, for example, right, they have the same thickness at the top, which means that they push your hand down from a fixed location. They push your hand down a little. Alright? And what does that do? That means that your hand again sits slightly lower than where you originally thought you were. Some grips are thicker on the top, which means your hand goes lower. That might work if the riser is particularly high. Some bare bow risers are high in the riser because, well, if that was the throat there, it balances nice. Ooh, that balances nice. Well done. Yeah? Okay. Having the grip higher in the riser means there's more riser in the bottom half, so therefore it balances that way. Do you want it there? Well, you might want it there if you heel the grip. Okay? But let me try and show you. If this part is a constant and you ran up on a higher and higher and higher and higher grip, you end up with a reduced vertical exposure to the riser. Okay? So when the grip is low, you might be looking for a grip with very small, thin under shelf, but you also might want a higher grip to get your hand higher into the throat. So, for example, a broken wrist, such as what you'd shoot with a hill style bow, you end up with a lower pressure, so therefore you want the grip higher in the bow. Shelf higher, everything goes a little bit higher, so that when you get your broken wrist down, the average pressure location is down. So if you want that pressure location to be in a better position within the bow, you move the whole grip up. So there's validity to say that if you wanted to shoot a thin, small, low grip, you actually want a steeper angle on that low grip, because what it'll do is it'll push the center of pressure higher into the throat. Yeah? Remember, there is actually a correct tiller for a bow. It's not 0. There is actually a correct push point through the bow. The push point through the bow is not necessarily the pressure point, although it kind of should be. People are going to turn around and tell me that anatomically they cannot change. There is an optimal, but yet you can actually change your posture. Speak to a physiotherapist, it can change you. So I'm not quite sure, right? So when you see a wrist that's heavily bent like this, right, that means they're applying pressure down through the bone structure, right, through the bottom end of the grip. when you see a straighter wrist, that means that they're applying the pressure up through the web of their fingers. Right? There's lots of top-end archers and they all vary, so none of it's right. It's only right for you. But the thing is, the right for you is never discussed in terms of right for the bow, right? And how you can establish a grip pressure to get onto that grip, to get into the throat of the grip and get the bow to shoot well. You'll notice some archers, some top-end Olympic archers, they've got their hand right up, so the knuckles right over the top. I kind of subscribe more to that, a lot more to that, than I do this broken wristed heavily on the heel. Now, heavily on the heel would be supporting a long rod, for example, right? Yeah, so you're holding it up, right? So don't confuse the mass of the bow, because remember, the tiller is also affected by the gravity of the bow. So, for example, if it wants to drop back, yeah, if it wants to fall backwards, that would, for example, if I was to take the weights off of this one, it would fall backwards, and that would affect the tiller, right? Whereas right now it kind of doesn't. Yeah, it'll be here for a while. Because there's weight forward of the pivot point. Yeah, so this bow would require a different tiller to one that just sits naturally. For example, like that. It doesn't tip back as quickly. Okay, so that balance scenario also affects your tiller requirements. Speak to any target archer when they've got their long rods and their V's and everything on there, that a bow that's leaning forward vibrates and one that doesn't, that's sitting back, requires different tiller measurements. So there's a lot going on. What I wanted to do in this video is to highlight that grip angle changes your average location pressure within the grip. You can change how you pressure the grip. The position of the grip within the riser changes how you pressure the grip, and so does the thickness of this top piece. Now, there seems to be a bit of a trend in the US where everything's sunk down, get more pressure on that low bit, and I really do not think that's a good thing for the bow. I've got various reasons and rationales that I can try and show you that doesn't make much sense. But the more you pressure the heel, the higher your knocking point's going to have to go. All right, high knocking points, they're never much fun. It really starts to knock the symmetry of the bow out, because you end up loading up the top half of the bow with more mass, as it's the one that has to pull the arrow through because it's closer to that that limb. There's just a lot going on that's just not optimal. Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that grip angle, thickness, riser position, and then you all change the tiller requirements as well as the balance of the bow. So it's not just about choosing a nice fancy coloured grip and claiming that you're the guru of grips, because I tell you, most of this isn't spoken about. One of the reasons why we opted to go with Aris Archery is because his grips and his attitude towards grips is all very amenable and open to discussion. Yeah. So, for example, take this. We made the Tempest with extra Deflex because we think it works really well with bare bow. It appears that we've got people following us on that concept. But the thing with the Tempest is it balances quite naturally with a fairly neutral grip position. It's not high and it's not low. But what we have done is we've allowed people to run with a deeper, with more Deflex. So standard seems to be around about 36 millimeters. Low Deflex value would be around about 28. We run with 46 because we think it helps with bare bow, but you can increase that to 52. yeah, with what's known as the Ultra Deflex grips. Yeah, it also makes the throat really quite small, quite thin, svelte, which can be quite handy for some people. But there you go. It's just an absolute minefield of lack of information as far as we're concerned. So I thought I'd try and cover some of the basics, and then it's up to you guys to make sense of it for you, because it depends on how you want to shoot, depends on what riser you've got. If you've got a riser that's up, the grip's high up there, but you don't believe that's quite right and you want to run it a bit lower, get a grip with a thick top. Grip makers, yeah, they give you lots of grip shapes. Any of them got any idea what it does to the bow? Because I never see any information coming forward. Also, there's a lot of validity to the concept that that when you change your grip angle, you can change the thickness to get the center of pressure in a constant location. All right, just food for thought. Don't think people are talking about the right stuff, so I'm going to put mine out there and see what people say. All right. Any further information, any further questions, the more the merrier. Stick it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to at least read them. All right. So thanks for watching, and let's keep going. All right. Cheers.